We now proceed to Congressman Lee Zeldin of New York.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I thank the distinguished panel for being here, as well as your service to our country in many different ways, including being here this morning. I know that you've been here for a few hours. It's now afternoon, and I just want to say thank you as well for being so generous with your time with the committee on such a very timely, important appearance. I don't need to wait 30 days or 60 days to decide that this is a bad deal, that's an unacceptable deal. It's okay to be open-minded. It doesn't mean that a requirement to be open-minded is that we're naive. It's a bad deal. And I think about, I have a really important question for you. You worked for presidents, just a tremendous amount of generations of administrations over the course of your time in government. The next president comes in, whoever the person is, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. That person decides that something that wasn't even part of these negotiations is motivated to tackle. So just briefly recapping, some of the stuff that weren't even part of the negotiations. Iran overthrowing foreign governments, sponsoring terror, financing terror, developing ICBMs, unjustly imprisoning United States citizens, including a pastor, a reporter, a United States Marine, developing, they're pledging to wipe Israel off the map. They're chanting death to America in the streets. The list goes on. We're handing them the $50 billion signing bonus, but we're not even giving it to them with strings attached that they can't use the money to continue to finance terror. I mean, these people have blood on their hands from U.S. service members who have been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. All this wasn't even part of the negotiations. So a president comes into office, it's January of 2017, and let's just say, God forbid, that any of these U.S. citizens are still being imprisoned, or they decide that we need to stop allowing them to overthrow foreign governments, or we need to cut off a funding supply to Hezbollah. Whatever the scenario is, the next president's motivated. If we give away all of these sanctions right now, tactically, what are the options that are left? The reason why the Iranians are at the table right now is because the sanctions were working. What is the impact of this deal on that motivation to tackle all of the other actions we have an issue with?
Congressman, we did not have sustained contact with the Iranians from 1979 until the autumn of 2013, so we had an abnormal relationship. We couldn't actually mix it up with them and really get in there and work with them and try to move them and leverage them. We've got that now. Now, the Obama administration made a tactical decision that for the life of these nuclear talks, they didn't want to introduce any other issues. You can argue pro or con whether that was the right decision. We do have the capacity to talk to them now. Secretary Kerry has he's a relationship of sorts, a professional relationship with the Iranian foreign minister, and I think I wouldn't wait to the next president. I think the Obama administration should take on the hostage issue and take on the terrorism issue and the regional issue and try to do what we can to motivate the Iranians to change their positions. It's going to be tough.
I mean, the Iranians they weren't negotiating with us because they're good actors, they're good world citizens. These are bad people blowing up mock U.S. warships while this is going on, fighting with the Syrians and the Houthis in Yemen against us and others. What is the leverage to actually, other than say, for Obama to go back, a few months from now, or Secretary Kerry to go over and say, pretty please, can you stop overthrow foreign governments? What's the actual leverage that's left other than asking nicely?
I think I'm not sure I'd ask nicely, but I think the actual leverage is to strengthen our military relationship with the GCC countries, the Saudis and others, to contain Iranian power in the Gulf, to close ranks with Israel, strengthen that relationship, and make it difficult for the Iranians to do what they're doing in the Middle East.
But why would the Iranians do anything that I just said if what they want we're just giving them right now with this deal? In my opinion, the President of the United States should be sitting down at the table with a strong hand, inheriting all that goodwill of generations of Americans who have fought and died for this country to keep us free and safe. And with that goodwill and that American exceptionalism, say, this is everything that we want in exchange for $50 billion plus of sanctions relief, but all the stuff was left out. So I guess what do we have to give the Iranians now that the sanction relief, if the sanction relief was met, what do we have to give the Iranians as leverage to get what we want out of them?
So the decision the Obama administration made was to focus on the nuclear issue as the greatest immediate danger. I think that was a correct decision. Now that that is underway and you have an agreement that hopefully will be implemented, we're going to have to build up our power and our coalitions against Iran. It's not about giving them something they want. It's about out-muscling them and outpowering them through containment regimes. And that's what the United States traditionally has done, going back to the Carter administration. When we said the Persian Gulf is an area of vital concern to the United States, we should say it again, to warn the Iranians about military activities, for instance, in that area.
And my time running short here, I appreciate that. I think that for the life of the Obama administration, or at least this particular moment in time, no one in the entire world, whether it's within the United States or the Middle East or elsewhere, believe if the president says that the military option is on the table, that he would actually do it. We saw what happened with Syria, that there would be consequences for using chemical warfare. They used chemical weapons, and nothing ended up happening. So, the president says the only alternative to whatever he agreed to was war. And the irony about it is that this deal will actually result in more instability in the Middle East and cause, nuclear arms race to some degree in that region as well. I'm just concerned that the president has negotiated a way that brought the Iranians to the table in the first place. America got played, and the president was complacent party to it. Now, the American public and the representatives in Congress, we should have the final say, not the president with a stroke of a pen. An announcement this morning made at the White House that was filled with falsehoods like 24/7, anytime, anywhere inspections that aren't real. I really do appreciate all of you being here. I'm just concerned about the future of our relations. And I'm sorry,
yeah,
General
just
Hayden.
one additional thought, maybe a little more aggressive than what Nick just suggested. Live by executive order, die by executive order. You are not going to lift these sanctions. The president is going to use his authority within your legislation to lift sanctions upon his executive decision. A future executive can reverse those decisions.
I'm just concerned that when you get rid of sanctions that take 8 years to put into place, and then you talk about snapback sanctions when you're working with foreign governments and foreign entities, it's very difficult to just snap them back.
No, it is. But with regard to our national sanctions, you're not going to repeal the law. I think that's very clear. And so we will ease those sanctions based upon the will of the executive, which can be changed.
And I appreciate the General's remarks, and I would encourage my colleagues, in the spirit of that discussion of what power Congress has or hasn't, or what power the American public has or hasn't, that we do not accept defeat, that we do not accept a bad deal with Iran because of the consequences. But I absolutely appreciate the General's remarks and the Ambassador and everyone else for being here. I yield back the balance of my time. Thank you, Chairman, for being generous with me.
Well, thank you, Congressman Zeldin, and thank you for your military service, too, for our country. God bless you.